All right, we are currently at our 8th Street project. We're doing our first blower door test, and we are currently at 0.12 at 58 pascals. Super airtight, super proud of the build team for this one. Let's get it.
We are here in sunny Boulder, Colorado at a project that is being certified with PHI for a couple that has lived here for about 30 years, and they decided to upgrade and retire in a super comfortable, beautiful passive house. It's a relatively compact form house. However, there's always some intricacies in a home that has some architectural details. We have some graphics and illustrations that we share with architects and engineers that makes it easy for us to execute on the details of air barrier transitions. However, we want to focus on looking at some of those because that's the trickiest part of passive house, is getting complex transitions in the air barrier done in a way that's sequenced properly so that you don't have to go back and try to resurrect or fix something that wasn't air sealed properly to begin with. So what we're going to look at is a number of transitions and how do we make sure that we have that air barrier continuous, and how do we do it in a way that's easy for the team to execute. By sharing these details with all of you, we're hoping that both your architects, engineers, and your field teams are able to then execute and nail those passive house air sealing details. This is one of the areas that we need to air seal, and there's some sequencing. So what we do is we add these plywood squares with the edges spray painted pink and with an instruction on what needs to happen. And the reason we do that is you physically can't put something over the top of this without unscrewing it and in theory reading what's on it. And so that's our way of alerting people that something needs to happen in here in the future, and it could be weeks or months down the road. Hard to remember all those little things, so we just install these throughout the house, and then as it's executed, we take it off and then we save them for later use. So the other thing we love about Intello, especially the Intello X because it's white, is it's basically a blank canvas for us to write notes. So you can see here, this is the window number, the position number, so that the window installer knows that they're putting the right window in the right location.
One of the biggest things on a construction site is communication. We do this in a couple different ways, verbally through infographics and then those pink signs you just saw. Not every sub that is on our job site is totally familiar with passive house. You know, this is still a new style of building. So having these infographics helps with just training future subcontractors about passive house details and ensuring materials are treated properly. This represents the allowable hole sizes in different lumber types, and we've pulled this from the Rosenberg manual, but only specifically for lumber types on this job site. So it's very quick to reference for subs, so there's no question about it. It helps with quality assurance versus just quality control. We're enabling our subs to be very thoughtful. There's no question about what they need to do. It's all right here. And then there's even a QR code to reference the exact manual if you need more details. We find that it's worth putting the time and effort into this signage just for the amount of rework that it saves. Rework is a killer on a job site. It's money, it's time, it's effort, and this stuff ensures that we minimize rework. So the owner of this house is an artist, and she requested to display a piece of her art at the front entryway. So we built this niche, but this niche goes past the depth of the service cavity. So we needed to use this box as an air sealing layer, which we taped into the Intello layer. In building passive house, you're going to run into instances where your air barrier cannot be continuous. There needs to be a bump out for different installations. So this same concept that we built for this niche applies to other areas in the house and how you would use this box as the air sealing layer to maintain continuity.
So what we're looking at here might not look very pretty, but behind all this protection is a lift and slide door. And obviously the gaskets and all the components of this very expensive product that's keeping this home air sealed and insulated is important. So what we've done here is we've basically just built a temporary construction entrance. It's floating over the sill of the frame of the door, and here you can see the remnants of the door is this handle, which is also protected from the manufacturer. So we've just protected everything else. So it looks good when the homeowners move in, and we make sure that all the gaskets and seals and rollers on this door operate smoothly for years to come. This is one of the areas we wanted to highlight. A lot of it's hidden right now, but this is a really key area of air barrier transition and also insulation detailing. So we have a double stud wall here with a service cavity. And so the air barrier is transitioning from the subfloor to this Intello membrane that you're seeing here, and then up and under on the underside of this small roof deck. So the key things that are really important here are you can see these LVL. They're multi-ply LVLs. I think they're 5 plies because of the structural requirements. But what's really important here is that we have a continuous framing member that we can air seal, and you can see the outline of the blue tape is such that that's relatively easy to do when designed properly. But imagine if that beam here went all the way through past our air barrier, it'd be a lot more challenging to execute on that. So we worked with the engineer and the architect to make sure this is planned properly. And then during framing, what you can see here is we air sealed the top plate of the outer wall. And then that allows us to transition through the double stud cavity from the vertical wall surface to the horizontal underside of this ceiling. So this area that we're standing underneath is probably one of the trickier areas of the house. So you can see the plywood has taped Tescon Vanna seams. So that's actually our air barrier. We had a lot of density and weight of insulation, so we worked with the consultant to specify plywood there instead of Intello. The one thing that you'll notice is that you'll see some material on the top plate here. This is actually not necessary, and it's not the air barrier. You can even see we try to alert people of that. So we have some notes there to just indicate, hey, you don't actually need to tape that connection because it's not important. So both are we alerting people what needs to be air sealed in the future and what doesn't need to be. So you're not questioning whether you've forgotten something. But the reason why it's taped is we thought it was a lot easier for framers to just say tape every top plate of every wall so that you don't have any ambiguity about missing something or not. And the cost and labor to tape 10 feet of top plate is not worth the hassle of forgetting it if you're trying to be picky about where it goes and where it doesn't go. But we're actually using Adhero to wrap the top plates. Part of it is because we have a 2x6 wall. It needs to go up and over both sides. Doing a piece of tape for that is more expensive. You typically would have to use 2 pieces to get it to fit. And the Adhero is much more durable. So as the framers are laying joists on it, it has a lot more durability of that outer surface to make sure that it doesn't get damaged during installation. Then you can see the red spray paint on that hole there. Because that is going through the air barrier, that does need to be taped. So we're alerting both our own teams and others about what needs to happen in the future, because we're waiting for a penetration there by one of the mechanical trades, and then once they're done, we'll tape that and air seal that hole. One other even trickier detail, we're in a kitchen area, and so you can see we have a exhaust hood. So the homeowners chose to have a kitchen exhaust at a lower CFM, and so that was another transition that we needed to accommodate for, and we're really particular about avoiding roof penetrations that, if at all possible. And this is just an example of coordinating with the architect, because this wasn't originally planned like this, so that we can have that duct come out, transition horizontally, and that way we can much easier waterproof that versus having to deal with something coming up vertically in this flat roof. So here what we're looking at is a beautiful wide entersign window with a patio door built into it, allowing access to this rooftop garden. So you can see here we have a pretty tight transition. We had some height restrictions on this particular lot. So you can see again we have a gabled cathedral ceiling here, and the air barrier is the plywood with our taped Vanna seams transitioning into this rough opening where we have a window or door buck around the entire side so that we can get a very easy, clean, continuous air barrier. Another example of a transition, by using a box around this transition like we saw earlier, it allows for taping right to that box. It's airtight, and it makes for these types of transitions really easy. All of our windows that we're installing are being center mounted in the frame for the best possible energy efficiency. And we're using double-sided tape to allow for a zero reveal installation, which is pretty common in high performance windows. So you have this beautiful pine here that we obviously don't want to cover up. So we first apply the double-sided tape to the inside of the frame. And you can see here it's very secure, probably putting 50 pounds of force on that. And then once the window is installed and screwed in and insulated in this gap here, we'll take off the back side of the backing of the double-sided tape and then adhere that up onto the air barrier of the rough opening. We do this on all of our projects. It's really easy. Our window installer is used to it. We think it saves time and saves cost. It's just a really clean detail. It allows for really nice architectural details and obviously super airtight installation. Thank you so much for joining us here in Boulder, Colorado. We really love showing you the details on this particular house. While the details may not be the same on your particular project, the principles are the same. You want to have a really well-designed project with your architect and engineer, and that allows you and all the trades that you're partnering with to execute on those details.
And here at Bauen Build, we really pride ourselves with nailing those details. The stuff behind the walls that you don't end up seeing is just as important as the finishes. And we geek out on these details and getting them right. I think everybody at the end of the project really appreciates the attention to detail. We're building a really comfortable, durable space for the owner, and nailing those details is of the utmost importance to ensuring that.